This was such an amazing project. I really need to do a good job documenting it. I created a rough draft for the first script. I like it, but I need to add so much more. That one started with a piece of test equipment called the Scenario Executor. This was basically a real-time scripting language that controlled all of our hardware that was testing and manipulating and monitoring a lot of the hardware that we were building and selling. In fact, this first picture, ooh, that comes way deep inside. You just have to imagine that we wrote our own. Actually, this was mostly my code that I've highlighted here. So anyway, we wrote our own language basically that would run in real-time constraints and would give us all sorts of information for debugging and for logging and monitoring. And well, right now you're seeing deep inside of there. This thing is called an assembly dump, and there wasn't really an assembler for this system. We jumped straight from the scripting language that I assume I have a picture of coming up, and we jumped straight from there to these byte codes that you'll also see in a minute. But this was the intermediate step that was only for debugging. This was just totally created as if a person was writing in a mythical assembly language for this simulator. And it's actually pretty nice. I mean, it starts with a comment, so you know what those random numbers are. Um, yeah, the next thing says load string 7, and you get to see exactly what that string is. And then a little bit down, you get to see 4i equals. That's obviously the source code. Once again, there's a semicolon. This is a mythical comment in our mythical assembly language. And it's also a next J if you look a little bit further. This language was actually modeled off of BASIC, uh, in part as a joke, in part because it was what some of the older people were comfortable with. And I think I just leaned into it. In fact, I think there's a few more words like print and rim that, well, we'll find examples. Yeah, this is so cool that I could actually see what was going on because, well, you'll see some more on the next one, or as we keep going. I've got quite a few of these pictures. I haven't reviewed them yet. Um, so yeah, this looked better on the screen. The printout didn't do really well. This is an inkjet printout from 1999. I think the screen was 7 whatever by 1024, 1024 by 768. I think that was the standard at the time. And maybe I can fix the contrast some, fix what the scanner did for me. The icon in the top left corner is me with my hair was very bushy at the time, and I don't know, I found it amusing. So yeah, what's this? We have a variables window. So this is part of the debugger. That's, oh, this is all part of the system, and the system again was made to be easily debugged. And this is stuff you could see and change while it was running, with or without hitting pause. And yeah, it looks like it has a oh, I'm just showing it off here, strings and integers and real numbers, and then things that are automatically created as part of a for loop. So yeah, you could kind of see, you could see so much of what was going on as your test script was running. A lot more about the background again in the link that I'll add below. This next one. So the display data window was real, but this particular contents was me obviously doing a test. In fact, that's some code kind of hiding behind there. You can see display 7 So I believe that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so the H4 thing, which, yeah, I'm sorry to say that's indexed at 1, but again, these were, I was working with other people. It wasn't all my choices. No, I joke. This was an incredible team, and I never could have done anything like this without them. I was the programmer. I was the one who knew how to make this part work, and all that hardware. Well, I'm getting off track here, but yeah, you can see simple formatting instructions. So let's see, display 7K. OK is probably a variable. Yes, yes, OK. K is the value that we're trying to print out, which is apparently 10 in decimal and A in hexadecimal. And then the format is H4, so 4-digit hexadecimal. And both of those fields do the value. And then there's also the name of the field, or it for some reason says data. And that's where I actually had string concatenation and automatic translation. So it knew K was a number, presumably an integer, and it automatically got cast to a string, and then that string got concatenated with the string as H4. Wow, this is coming back to me. This was impressive. Again, we built the equipment, and then we had to build the scripting language and some other stuff that this might get into just to use it. These things just didn't exist. In fact, I don't know if they do now. Yeah, so, and some more, that's obviously a test script running behind it, the same thing that produced this list. Ah, yes, I mentioned this definitely. I'm looking at the inappropriate format part, and I definitely discussed this in I definitely mentioned this in the script, link in the description. But in this case, so that was just the format. In the other examples, we had, excuse me, someone had A stored apparently in a variable or some sort of expression instead of having it as a constant. And that's why the program is running, but in real time it gives you that error message, inappropriate format. The next one shows a very small change, and let's see, the compiler messages means that we didn't even run. So this is pretty much the same error. Oh wow, it says all this. I didn't have to get this off the top of my head. I actually had a lot of examples in here. Wow. I guess dollar sign, dollar sign, dollar sign is a comment. Wow, the old me made these great notes, and the new me doesn't even read them as they're right in front of me. But yeah, you can see I created a variable called bad format. My optimizer was not smart enough to figure that one out on its own. It actually does a lot of stuff with constants, and a lot of times this example is way too simple. There are cases where these automatic assertions, basically the fact that you can detect it on the bottom two immediately, but the top two had to be done at runtime. Well, that was the argument between me and my boss. He was worried if I made this no longer a constant, if I said it could be a variable or an expression, he thought he would lose his error messages or his compile time error messages. And one of the first things I had to show him was, hey, I'm smarter than you give me credit for. To be fair, he'd sometimes come back and compliment me. He'd say, Philip is almost as smart as he thinks he is. All right, so this next one I'm pretty sure was an early prototype. So on the left is, well, the quit button, obviously. I believe this was all 18 point. Everything you see here on the screen, the default was 12 point, but one of my design decisions from the beginning was I don't want anything, I don't want any fine print. There's a few exceptions. You'll see in the next example what that big hole on the bottom right is for. There's always legacy stuff. This was mostly new things that we were creating using the brand new tools, but there were certain things we couldn't touch. They were sacrosanct. You didn't want to change the procedure or the output that gets printed, and that box had to be, we had to shrink a few things just to fit on there. Yeah, debug or run test. I love that. I think the run test button is probably centered, and the debug button, hopefully we'll get to see that. That probably only appears in certain situations, only when it's under our control. Yeah, that picture, I wish you could see it better. That's red. I bet I can fix some of this, the contrast. The blue should be a little brighter, and the red, you can barely tell that's red at all. Hope I can fix that. Production work order number. You know, maybe this was a real thing. It's been so long. Ah, yeah, the sub-test results. Um, I didn't invent any of this, but a lot of it I basically moved it from a DOS experience to a Windows experience. This was all done in Borland Delphi. So you can kind of see the subtest results. That's a summary of what's going to come, the breadcrumbs, as we like to say on a website. You know, the stuff, all the chapters and subchapters, and that'll get more interesting when the thing actually runs. And again, that picture, we're going to take a closer look, I'm pretty sure, because there was some neat stuff going on. Oh yeah, this was absolutely my favorite test, and I can tell you why. I didn't just come in and decide to rewrite a bunch of software. I had been working on the old version, supporting it for a long time. This one example, well, the DOS version didn't have pictures. Instead of having that picture that has in green or yellow or yellowish green, it would just say, go to page 27 of manual number whatever, whatever, and compare it to that picture. Which, of course, number one is a waste because it's all you're trying to say is that it says 0 through F. But the other thing is, I happen to know for certain that nobody else actually tried looking it up. They just knew what the answer was supposed to be, maybe because the previous person told them. But I know because I actually looked at the actual page in the manual and it was the wrong picture anyway. So if anyone had used that, they'd be wrong. Um, oh, it's a shame that we couldn't easily capture a video back then. This thing, okay, you have the picture there, and it's actually going to be flashing. The letters that are in green there, they're going to be going on and off. And you have that description in bold that says the same thing in English. So they're both kind of confirming each other. And again, my favorite part, we showed this off to so many people. This was cool tech. We were, again, lucky enough to be restarting on pretty much a greenfield project, and everyone wanted to see what we were doing. And I just remember them looking at this thing because we got the lights on the screen to flash at exactly the same rate as the lights on the device that you're testing. And people would just stare at them for so long. It's like, I don't know, when people's blinkers never seem to match up. But, you know, when you're sitting behind a whole bunch of cars and no one's blinker, they're all out of phase, but this was in phase. And again, people just stare at it forever, which I thought was hilarious. And I always took it as a compliment, absolutely. Yeah, again, I think this was in 11 point, and I hated doing that, but this was the official bought off procedure. So, yeah, let's keep going. Oh, I just noticed we changed the icon. We got rid of my face, and now we have a picture of the thing being tested. You'll see it up closer in a second when we look at the desktop. But just trust me that that's not my face. That is a picture, probably very similar to the one that we just saw bigger in the previous slide. So anyway, this is Byte Server something data link messages. People used to make fun of Comic Sans. In fact, people still do. Um, Basically, I liked it for my debug windows. I didn't want anyone to confuse my debug window for a real window. And, just making it really ugly and ugly in a way everyone would recognize, that did the trick. Looks like there was one simple input, a lot of outputs. Um, Yeah, we had a ton of these messages. In fact, we'll see a few more debug windows in a second. Ah, so here we are back in the main window, but obviously some stuff has changed. Presumably someone hit the test button instead of the start button. This is a really cool look inside the software. Basically, there were two parts of the code. There was the part that was written for the real-time half, and there was the part that was written for the GUI half. And they had to communicate, and there were different ways to communicate. For a process like this, usually the two halves of the code were written together, and they were written as one piece, and they knew how to communicate, and they had, I wouldn't even call it, it certainly wasn't an API. It was a custom protocol of just whatever it needed. And the best part of it was that each step in the protocol had a number associated with it. And obviously, it was an enum in C++ on the real-time side and in Delphi, same value and same name on both sides. And we could do some, I don't even remember which trick we used to get those, but we could show the same thing on the screen that you see in your code, which for a compiled language was, well, actually two compiled languages and the screen. So yes, I am patting myself on the back. I'm proud of all this stuff. No secret there. Uh, but yeah, this is basically where you could then jump in and you could say go straight to one part of my code, and we had already divvied it up where one part of the code, the real time stuff, pauses and waits for the GUI, and vice versa. And every one of those had one of these things associated with it. So you just click on that and jump straight into the whatever you wanted in the code. And I hope we have more pictures of what that debug session looks like. It's oh, I have these great memories. I Our first time working together, we had just my buddy Charles, rest in peace, Charles. He had done a whole lot of the hardware side. I said you have one person doing both sides. We were right next to one another and great friends. But yeah, I had done the GUI part, and he had done the C++ part, and we were just stepping through it. Every time there was an unexpected failure, we'd stop and we'd go into these tests one at a time just to see exactly where it was we were failing. All right. Oh yes. So this advanced options. This is one of my favorite debug windows. It's kind of the meta debug window. Originally, well, in previous projects, we had all sorts of different ways to hide debug stuff. And I finally said I was tired of all of that. I was going to have one master window, and well, this was a reusable library, so it was across a bunch of related products. And you hit Shift, Alt, Control A, I think, something like that. And oh, a few people complained that was too many keystrokes, but that was the whole point. That was something that we wouldn't forget, but someone wouldn't hit by accident. And then that pops up this one window which has the names of any debug stuff that's registered to it. The power supply is also a library that's used by a whole lot of things. So the the libraries all know that they can register themselves here, and it just made life so much easier. I mean, think about just the number of hotkeys you have to remember versus one meta hotkey to bring up the menu. Oh, I remember this one. This was a tool that helped us in development. Each of those words, those weird looking words, is an input to the process, and depending on the set of those, we would output something. You could edit the inputs three different ways. Load from file would read a log file, a output from a legitimate run, and it would grab the debug data from the bottom. And that's pretty much what you see in the as text version. And by the way, that was editable text. This was all stuff that you could, well, mostly you could copy and paste it. Those were the same values that were enums in the code, and those were the same values that were in the log files that we printed out. And then as checkboxes, that's just a tab away, that shows the same information, but it's easier to add new stuff. You don't have to remember those weird names. You can just check them. So you could quickly load from a file, edit it, look at the list. I'm pretty sure the originals were all literally zeros and ones for some reason. I can't believe I'd make that up. Um, and I translated a whole bunch of old stuff to work with this new stuff where it's just copy and paste. I love copy and paste. I love copy and paste, and at the time I really loved those tabs. We used to love tabs in Delphi. That was so overused because it worked so well. Once we had the basics set up in Delphi, it was easy adding more stuff. Power supply status. So we saw this a couple screens ago, the list of all the debug windows. Oh, yeah, I'm not sure I can add a whole lot to this, but that error message, yeah, GPIB, that's I can't think of the name of that company that made it, but yeah, that was some software, excuse me, some test equipment like that was some of the hardware that we put into our computer to talk to various other pieces of hardware. In this case, the power supply. And I worked on that interface, talking to the GPIB board and telling it what to do. There were a whole bunch of different pieces to this project, and I was glad I got to do a little bit of all sorts of things, all sorts of different programming in this project. Okay. Here we have a couple of screens of icons, and I hope they're a little bit more legible than the other page. I feel a little bit bad. This first set of things, five of them look really good, and I'm sure they all came from our drafting department. And that self-test, I have a bad feeling that I'm the one who drew that. Um, yeah, these icons, and again, I wish you could see them just a little bit better. But imagine you had those five pieces of hardware sitting in front of you, and you had those five icons on the screen. You would absolutely be able to look at them and double click on the right one. I mean, I hate to say it, this is cleaner than some of the interfaces I see now. And this is 1999. And it's amazing. Again, you can't see it anymore now that it's been printed, but they actually looked pretty good for their size. STE. I think that's software test equipment or something. SLTS, I think, was the new one, and STE was the one we were replacing. Yeah, this is cool. This is again that picture of me actually almost visible. And then I love those icons with the. You have to use some imagination, but those are the slightly You know what? You go to my GitHub profile, I have something very similar. Again, from the same era, just a simple thing with a little bit of shadow, and brings back some memories. And obviously, play and pause and that sort of stuff. That's the scenario executor, the thing I keep telling you about. Ooh, we must have been low on ink this day. This was really pushing the limits. The fact that we had a color printer, a color inkjet printer, it just gives you a sense of the era. This was considered high tech at the time, or at least fairly nice. Okay, GDM data. I'm going to assume that this is some sort of debug window because, yeah, I'm hoping we're not saying all that to the user. Calling, identify LRU. Yeah, again, it's debug info. It's whatever it needs to be. So this, let's see if I can go back and find that picture. So the picture seq.exe is what we would have double clicked on to get this program. And that picture here on the left is a very zoomed in picture of what you see here in the sequencer's icon. The only thing we had to show people was the inputs because there was no outputs on here. There was nothing for them to look at. Okay, this is getting more interesting. So, and again, I take credit for a lot of the GUI. We had a kind of a contest, an informal contest, where we did come up with different ideas. And I think mine won because it was full screen and it used large friendly letters. It did everything except say "Don't panic" on it. So yeah. Anyway, this now the pictures, as I said, we got these from drafting, and my boss was very clever about the way that they did it. So we could mix and match the different settings. I could actually make that thing rotate in my program. Now, again, that's that's a single line of CSS now, but this was really blowing people away. And again, I'm very proud of what I did, but at the same time, we were going from DOS to Windows, and we were just showing what could be done with it. And one thing of interest to note, the S2 equals F is in bold. That means that it changed from the last thing that we showed the user. Also, again, I wish I had a video of it, but that switch actually rotated, the knob actually rotated from where it was to where it was supposed to be. So anything that changed, you'd see it in two places. You'd see the animation and you'd see the bold, and they would go together. And it worked programmatically. Even if you did the steps out of order, it was smart enough to know the difference. And even if you didn't notice those, the thing is, hey, make the real system look like what we've described here. Finally, something in the bottom left. You get to see that, yeah, a test failed. And again, that summarizes a whole lot of smaller screens. Okay, what's next? Ooh, I think this must be an internal error. We couldn't talk to our own power supply, not that we couldn't talk to the equipment that we're testing. So I'm just guessing from the way that screen looks, and yeah, exit and went restart. That's kind of a panic, I guess. Ah, this was kind of an experiment. I don't think we did much with this next window, but I hate to admit it, this may have really, the way we were storing all the data may have really inspired some of the stuff I did at my current job. Basically, I was taking some of the events out of the log. I described the log file in detail in the document I've linked below. But I take a bunch of those and I shove them into the database. And then suddenly I can use normal database tools. You can, with very little effort, link up a chart or a editable grid to a database query. Oh, once again, I should have read the instructions, bottom center. This is part of the new test that I'm doing. Hello. So yeah, it was a neat. Oh wow, even some SQL. Nothing's changed. The all of our back office stuff, or a lot of it at my current job, we have the SQL shows up, not on the customer facing stuff. But yeah, it's nice having developer tools that are made for developers. Ah, here's another critical error. Gotta love this stuff. Yeah, this one had some more details. I'm gonna say that it's actually almost pretty readable. E assertion failed, caught by. Uh, it's worth noting that at this time you couldn't just get a stack dump anytime you wanted. In Java or a lot of languages, JavaScript, when there's a problem, it automatically dumps a very nice human readable stack dump. But all of this we had to do pretty much on our own. Yeah, I think this is the older version of the CMDS, and the previous pictures I showed you were the newer version. Well, the worst thing about the older version, there was more legacy attached to it, and there was less that we could change and upgrade while we were redoing things. The newer version is the one we always showed off to people. Oh, yeah, my boss was an Aggie, or this was obviously showing off to him. Oh, yeah, you see the tools at the top, the toolbar. I didn't make any of those icons. Those were all standard icons, and hope you can see like the 3D effects. They were, simple, but there just weren't a whole lot of pixels. Just for comparison, pretty sure anytime you see the bump at the side of a window, like the full up and down part, I'm pretty sure that's 4 pixels wide. So yeah, these were the old days. Anyway, yeah, the prompts window. This was mostly taken from what we had before because it worked well, and it was just a nice way to do interaction with the user. And I forget exactly what it did before, but pretty much the same thing. There's the oh yeah, the source code. It looks like, and I wonder if wait is green. It's probably green because it's waiting for me to like it's paused there. Yes, that's exactly why it's green. It printed those 2 lines and it's waiting. And the next thing it's going to say is run file name to find out. Oh, I get it now. Yes. Oh, there's our assembly dump. As I said, that's a very useful debugging tool that's always there, even though there wasn't really assembly. Display data. We saw that window a few screens ago. And compiler. I can't read that one. We'll hopefully see that soon. Oh, I thought this was Tracor. We were apparently called Marconi at this time. We change names so often. I threatened my boss I was going to put the name of the company in an INI file so we could change it faster. He was not amused. That icon, now that is TK, or better known as Wish, Tickle and Wish. Ooh, I loved highlighting things by making them either embossed or what's the word, embossed or engraved. And that was just kind of a sign of the times. I used to love motif, and it was just so much simpler, and that's a lot of what the Wish stuff used. So it was their version. This was not HTML, but it was their version of a highlighting system where you could make the text look like anything you wanted. It was very powerful. And that was our log viewer, because it wasn't just viewing the log, it was doing all sorts of filtering and sorting, and it was just nice to have a very flexible tool. Um, Same thing now, especially with our servers. We're at Trade Ideas. You don't always know what you need in advance, and you log a whole bunch of stuff, and then later you might need some help just looking through the logs, and that's okay. So yeah, this was the source code. No. Okay, yeah, this is perfect. I was trying to describe this in the document I keep mentioning. File prompts on. That sounds like something that my boss told me to copy from the old one. But yeah, this is saying that it got to a particular line at that time. The stuff that's kind of embossed, kind of looks like a button, those are actual source lines. So it's actually showing you what the line of code was while it was doing its thing. File prompts off. I'm still not sure. I'm sure that meant something to somebody. Um, I guess wait CR. I guess that was a keyword. You write your own language, especially a basic like language. You can make anything you want a keyword. Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. The last thing is annotate, basically send it out to the world, and let's see, that must be seconds and no, that's got to be milliseconds and microseconds. Yeah, I don't remember. So yeah, once again, the bottom of the screen very clearly says it. I miss having a status bar at the bottom. I think the browser sometimes has one that disappears. That was one of the most useful things about this era of software. Ooh, yes. This was all tickle and wish. These are things that you can easily look for in the everything in the log had a type associated with it, and you could recolor it. You could oh, relief. That was the word they used. That's the thing that makes it stick out or push in, and it was just a neat feature. And I don't know, it worked. I just love this stuff. So specified versus just use the default. Wow, results of find all, results of last find in two different colors. I just love this whole window. It's so colorful and it was so useful at the time. And the find text window, which again, we were just kind of starting from scratch, and this I definitely did this all myself because no one else appreciated TCL, at least not until this was done. I like scripting. And what else? Filter. Oh yeah, so this goes with the colors, I guess. That that file from hell. You can read the whole story of why it's called the file from hell. Oh, those option things. That's just an older style, and that keeps changing. I don't know why people need to keep changing it, but yeah, if you click on, you'll see what the other choices are, like presumably off. Presumably, more than that. It's otherwise it'd just be a checkbox. So yeah, this is what did you want to see in that file, and start time and end time. Pretty straightforward. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed these pictures. I need to do something with this project. There's so much good stuff, and I've given you a few hints here and in the document. Please let me know what you think.